There are pros and cons to every gaming platform. PC, Xbox, PS4, Wii, whatever system you prefer, there are always good and bad points. Take consoles as a whole, for example. An Xbox One right now will set you back around $300, but a lot of the games you play on it may not be running at native 1080p, and a lot of them probably not at 60 FPS. 900p is a common resolution for games to be shown at on Xbox One these days, and well, that isn't great, and it's not what we were hoping for when this last generation of consoles hit the shelves. We can't forget though, graphics aren't everything and gameplay comes first, but still, frame rate and fidelity is very important. On the other side of the fence, a tricked out high-end PC may cost you up to a few $1,000s depending on the specs, but it will guarantee you 100 plus frames per second on most games and the best level of graphics. The thing is, not everyone can afford that sort of investment though, and some just want to relax on their sofa and play FIFA. There's always a trade-off. You can build a pretty good gaming PC for around $800, but what if there wasn't that trade-off? What if there was finally a console that could provide the visuals of a high-spec PC without the high-end price? A console that could make your games look just as good on your living room TV as they could on your PC monitor. Meet Project Scorpio, or as I'm going to call it for the time being, the Xbox Scorpio, the console you've been waiting for. I say meet, you can't see it just yet as it's not ready to be shown off, but we can talk about what will be inside it, and it's very interesting and I thought it warranted a video. First though, let's just backtrack for a second. If you remember, about a month ago I did a video talking about the PlayStation Neo. It's a new version of the PlayStation 4 with more power and 4K support. Well, that's exactly what this new Xbox console is for, 4K, but just like the Neo, this is not a new generation of consoles, it's just one with a lot more grunt. 4K seems to be the thing of the moment, with 4K Blu-rays and 4K TVs becoming popular and much more affordable, and of course 4K gaming is possible right now on some home PCs even with one graphics card, but still some people struggle to run 4K games at good frame rates consistently. So why do consoles think they can achieve it? The PS4 Neo isn't going to be running all of its games at full 4K anytime soon with a good enough frame rate, but the Xbox Scorpio, on the other hand, based on the specs, might be able to do it far more consistently, but maybe it shouldn't, and I'll get onto what I mean by that in a second. Let's get into the details about just what this Scorpio console is. Firstly, like I said, this is not technically a new generation. It's not a brand new console that will render your Xbox One extinct. If you own an Xbox One or an Xbox Scorpio, assuming the name remains the same, you'll still be playing the same games, except the Scorpio version will look far better, run at higher frame rates, higher resolutions, or perhaps all of the above depending on the route the developers go down. Either way, you're going to have one version of the game on the normal Xbox and one that looks a lot better and runs a lot smoother on the Scorpio. I suppose it's not really that different to comparing current consoles and PCs right now if you've got the same game on both platforms. The important thing to remember though is that Scorpio will have no exclusives. Developers will not be allowed to make a game solely for Project Scorpio. It must be made for both Xbox versions. That ensures that there's no current Xbox owner left out in the dark. Okay, so let's talk theoreticals and throw some jargon at you. The Xbox Scorpio comes equipped with 6 teraflops of computing power, but what on earth does that mean? Well, without boring you, essentially a teraflop is a measurement of how much computing power the developers will have to play with. The more teraflops you have, the more floating point operations you can perform each second. Basically, the more teraflops, the more work your GPU can do each second. That then lets you render more complex and much more larger environments. So to compare, the Xbox One has the equivalent of around 1.3 teraflops of computing power. As you can already work out, Scorpio is quite the jump, around 4.5 times the performance. Not only that, but based on raw numbers, the GPU power of the Scorpio is on par with the recently released Nvidia 1070 graphics card. Now this doesn't match up 1-to-1, but imagine for a second that your Xbox has the same power as a recently released desktop graphics card. That's insane. You only need to see the 3D teaser footage with a desktop cooler on the graphics card to see that this console means business. And to come back down to earth for a second though, like I mentioned, numbers aren't everything. The power the Scorpio will have is based on so many other things, like the amount of RAM it has and how fast it runs, how well the new 8-core CPU operates and how good the architecture is, how many calculations per second. The Nvidia Titan X actually has 7 teraflops of computing power, but still performs worse than a 1070 with 6. So as you can see, the higher numbers don't always mean better performance. Just as a point to note for comparison, the PlayStation Neo, their new 4K console, is targeting around 4 teraflops, so that's much less than the Xbox Scorpio. So as I just mentioned, the Xbox Scorpio is going to have an 8-core CPU, but no word on what exactly that is or how much of an upgrade it's going to be over the current CPU in the Xbox One. As well as that, it will have 320 GBs of memory bandwidth, which is the same bandwidth that the 8GB of DDR5X on the brand new GTX 1080s provide. After doing a little bit of research and looking at various articles, that means that Scorpio could either have 8GB of DDR5X, much like on the 1080 GPU, or around 12GB of standard DDR5. Either way, this is a massive improvement in memory speed over the original Xbox One. Okay, right now we're a bit thin on the ground on information and we're doing a bit of guesswork, but what we do know from the facts is that Project Scorpio is a much higher spec than the PlayStation Neo, which we have more information on. But of course what we don't know yet is the price, and I think that's going to be the kicker. If they want this to be an enthusiast only console, will they price it really high at, let's say, £600 in the UK, or will they want to ensure that everyone can buy one and keep it more around the £400 to £500 mark? It's possible that they want most of the player base to buy the standard Xbox One or the new Xbox One S, that's the slim version, than it is that the Scorpio is being lined up as a much more higher spec but more expensive version that most people probably won't go for. Whatever Xbox do though, it's a really interesting time for the console and gaming market, especially as Xbox Scorpio is due to be released next year. There's always so much talk about consoles not being able to provide even 1080p 60fps, and then all of a sudden we look like we're aiming at 4K instead. And this brings me back to the point I made earlier. Should these consoles even be aiming for 4K? Is there enough of a market there anyway? Why not just use the extra power of the Scorpio to make current games look incredible at 1080p and run at a constant 60fps or above? Well, you know what, they can probably do that too with this console. It's their choice, and Microsoft have confirmed that they will not force developers to make games for the Scorpio run at a certain resolution. That means that if a developer wants to, they can make their game run at 4K on the Scorpio if they can, but if they'd rather eke out the extra visual fidelity at 1080p and make it run at 60fps, then they can do that too. It really wouldn't surprise me if we see more of a trend of in-game options for visuals with console games, almost like a Switch that I've talked about before, where you can choose between a low frame rate and 4K or 1080 and higher FPS. And lastly, what about this? And I think this would be awesome for console gamers, because this is something that they've really missed out on. What if the new Scorpio console has a DisplayPort out capable of 120Hz? Imagine if your gaming console could run your new Call of Duty title or the new Battlefield game at 120 frames per second at 1080p, which, judging by the specs, it would be more than capable of doing, and then inputting it all into its 120Hz glory to your monitor. That certainly would be something and a big selling point for these consoles. In my opinion, upgrading from a 60Hz monitor to a 120 or 144Hz monitor is one of the best upgrades you can make for gaming. It really does look and feel so much smoother. And as well as all of this, virtual reality is massive right now, and Microsoft has said that they want to ensure Scorpio is VR enabled. Assuming Microsoft isn't working on their own VR product, that could mean support for the HTC Vive or Oculus directly, because it would definitely have enough power. In conclusion, I have to say that I'm really looking forward to seeing what this thing will look like and exactly how much power it has in reality when we see the first games running on it, because the idea of a new console that actually has proper power is very appealing to me, and it's only a good thing for all of us as gamers. It means that the scope and scale and graphical fidelity of games is going to improve rapidly. It's going to be awesome. Just to wrap things off, I thought this was worth mentioning too because I think it's pretty neat. Microsoft also announced their Play Anywhere initiative at E3, where its first-party gamers and some games from other developers will be playable on both Xbox One and Windows 10. You can buy the game once and you can play it on either platform, and your saves carry over as well, just like we saw with Quantum Break. It's great to see this becoming a thing and for Microsoft to start thinking about the PC platform once again, but I have to say that the Windows Store needs some serious work and attention for people to start taking it seriously. But we will see games like Gears of War 4, Forza Horizon 3, Halo Wars 2, Sea of Thieves, Recall, Crackdown 3, they're all going to be available on this initiative, and I can only assume that because of this, future exclusive titles to Xbox One, like Halo 6 for example, if that's even a thing, will be playable on PC too, and that's great in my book. Play on either platform and have your saves carry over, that's pretty cool. As always, thank you for watching guys. If you enjoyed the video, please do give me a thumbs up, that would be amazing. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you like the sound of this new console? Good idea, bad idea? When it releases, would you buy it if you already own an Xbox One or PS4? Right guys, catch you later and I'll see you in the next one.